I am Dr. Mitch Harlan, and welcome to the Truth Talks podcast. Human trafficking is one of the most feared and under-discussed topics facing America today. On this week's episode, we are bringing you a first-hand account from Ashley, a real trafficking victim. We are protecting Ashley's identity because her story involves some of the nation's most influential and powerful people. Human trafficking can happen to anyone, anywhere, at any time. The fear and intimidation is insurmountable. For too many, the story is real. Please tune in so that someone you know does not become a victim of human trafficking. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch Harlan, and welcome to the Truth Talks podcast. Today's podcast, I'm here with Ashley. Ashley is being blurred out for a reason. We are talking about trafficking, human trafficking. This story is not only important for people who have children, but it's important for other people to understand and notice what trafficking looks like so that we can start saving the lives of these young people. Obviously, an extremely hot topic these days, probably has been for a long time, but now that there's becoming awareness, we have Ashley's story. How are you, Ashley?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me today.
Well, thank you for coming on the show, and I want to let people know because there is, as I was doing research, there is some kind of controversy as there's a lot of companies out there that aren't necessarily legit that bring up these types of stories, looking for donations and so on and so forth. So I kind of want to let everybody know that I actually know someone that knows you personally, and this story actually came to me quasi by accident as I was going to do a different type of thing with them. And so you were obviously chosen when I heard this because we want real, true, live, hard facts about this stuff. And there is no one better than someone that's actually experienced it. So I can't tell you how much we appreciate you coming on this show, telling us all the stuff that you want all of these young people to know. I know it's probably not easy to do it, so I just can't tell you how thankful we are for that. So without further ado, I literally want to get jumped right into your story of what exactly happened to you.
All right. So where to begin? So what happened was I was a young, impressionable girl. I was taking care of my grandmother in a nursing home. And this was back when Facebook started getting big. And I was on Facebook. I was a singer at the time. And I saw a gentleman online, and he was a producer. And I was like looking into his stuff. He was in the Billboard Top 100. I noticed that he went to a very well-known college, and he was on the dean's list. He even, had everything to back it up. So I was like, okay, this guy's really legitimate. And I got to know him. We started speaking. I told him I was interested in music. He said he was the same. We also had a similar interest in God. And we became friends over the years. I would say that we built a friendship over years of time. And through the time that I had spoke with him, he would just keep mentioning, hey, I save dancers, I save strippers out of that life. And I would notice, his stories I thought were adding up. He had girls that had his name tattooed on them. And they're like, yeah, I saved their life. So they really wanted to put that on their body because it was a sign to me that they really appreciated what I did for them. So long story short, we built that relationship. I was 16 or 17 when we had first met. He was already trying to find me out to do, recordings and all of these different things. But I was like, I'm really young. I don't feel comfortable. I need to finish school. I need to do all of these things first. So what ended up happening, I finally got to the point to where he was like, okay, I really feel like it's time for us to bring you out. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take this leap. And he was very legitimate. So I was like, okay. So he put me on a flight to Vegas, and I fly out to Vegas.
And you're how old at this time?
At this time, so he had been preying on me for at least 6 years. So I want to say I was 22 or 23.
Okay.
Yeah, so he planted a seed is what I would say. So he got to know me. He figured out all my weaknesses, everything I was about. I even talked to him as a friend during dating other men. So that's why I confided in him. He was like my best friend. And, he flies me out to Vegas and I'm met by a girl and I'm like, okay, nice to meet you. And she's like, get ready because your life is about to change. And I was so excited. We go to the mall. They put hair extensions in my hair. They do my eyebrows. They do all of these different things. They took me to Chanel, which at the time I didn't even know it was called Chanel. I called it Channel, if that tells you how much I
Right.
knew. I was from a small town in the middle of the country, so I had no idea this was a dream come true. And the only place I saw this was on TV. So I go, they take me to the mall. They do all these things. They took me to Chanel. They got Chanel makeup. They took me to BB. They were taking me to all these designer places. There was Gucci, Louis Vuitton, and they would buy stuff. And they were like, your life is changing now. You have to look the part. You have to look the image. So the night that the makeover had happened, I realized that there was we were living out of a hotel, which I was like, okay, that's interesting, at the MGM Grand in Vegas. And I was like, okay, that's an interesting place to live, but they have money, so I'm sure that they can do it. And this is show business. This is a show business town. So I go up to the room that night and I noticed I was like, there's this really skimpy dress and a pair of heels. And they were like, okay, well, go on ahead and put this on. We're going to go out for tonight. And I was like, I would never wear that. They were like, we just gave you a makeover. What in the world makes you think that you're not going to have to pay us back? And I was like, what do you mean? Like, this is not what I signed up for. He told me I was going to be working for his magazine. And to get me to come out, he also said I was going to be working in a restaurant as a side gig, and it was a bikini bar. So I was like, okay, sure, that's harmless. If that's what I have to do to make my dreams come true, I have to put in a little bit of work. And so back to the hotel room, I was like, I would never wear that. And they basically threatened me, and they were like, well, you don't think you have a choice now, do you? And then from then on, I noticed other people from around were watching us, and they were keeping tabs on us. And there was a girl that she got to direct my every move. They took me to a place called Sapphire. That is one of the biggest strip clubs in America, I believe. It's in Vegas. It's the biggest one in Vegas. And I realized once I go in that they're like, oh, you're going to audition. I'm under the impression, I didn't even understand this was a strip club.
Is this all in? Is this all the 24 hours? So you fly out there, all this stuff happens, and wow,
Yep,
okay.
it happened that quick. Yep. So I was there that night, and I was so uncomfortable, and I'll never forget it. You are told that you have to go on stage, you have to do this and that, and I was just mortified. And I was like, this is not what I signed up for. And I remember trying to leave, but they had told one of the managers that I was one of the new girls. And the managers would not let me leave because we can't make a spectacle, and the club doesn't want to get in trouble, so they'll do whatever they can to protect that club. And now, as I've done further investigation, I know that there's a lot of that goes on. And the managers actually get paid out about 10% at the end of the night, to put girls on good tables, and they're in cahoots with the actual pimps and the traffickers that are running the girls through these places, which is crazy. So that's a recap of just my first day, which is completely insane. From then on, I knew I was trapped. I was terrified. They had sent flowers to my parents' house, and my parents were like, where did these flowers come from? I was like, I didn't send flowers. And it said from, the initials of my trafficker. And I was like, oh my gosh, they know where my family lives. This is a threat. This is a threat. To them, it didn't seem like anything but flowers, but to me, I knew what it was.
I've done some research on this, and obviously, that was kind of that scare tactic, right? Where they're letting you know that they know where your family lives, and now you've brought in that fear of what they might do to the family. Is that accurate?
That is absolutely correct. I had
Okay.
the fear of God in me. I was like, I can't even tell them now. Like, they're going to have to move. Like, my mind went down a black hole. I was like, what have I done? Like, this was the worst decision I could have made. So from then on, and I gave up everything. I gave up all the money I had to get there. I gave up my apartment, everything. I sold everything, and I gave them all my last money to get there. So by that time, I had nothing. My family, it was poor. My family couldn't bring me back home. They couldn't come out there and save me. There was nothing they could have done. And I got myself into this. So I was like, okay, what am I supposed to do? And from then on, it started with mind games and all of these things. But I realized that now I realize he had planted all these seeds over time. He knew, like I said, my weaknesses. So he knew how to play me. He knew, had everything in the world against me, to break me down and make me feel not worthy. And I was like, well, you have to stay here and you can't go anywhere else. And he just knew how to play me up from on every turn. He had done this so many times to so many other women that he just knew how to play me.
And they actually, I mean, this is a tactic that they use all the time. These are professionals. These aren't somebody just out there doing it on, for a day. I mean, they have a place for you to live. They buy you all this stuff. They get you cornered into this whole thing. This is mind blowing to me. I mean, it's just unreal. And I can't imagine a young lady going out there and all of a sudden this happens in the first 24 hours and you can't leave. They send the flowers. This is unbelievable to me. Where does it go after that? I mean, you mentioned mind games. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that mind games means?
Yeah, so like as far as mind games, like the flowers was one of them. They would also just they would leave subtle things like, hey, if you leave here, we're gonna know exactly where you're at. You're not allowed to talk to anybody. They would take your phone away from you. They would play with you like they knew how to get on your social media and post pictures of you as if everything was totally fine when nothing was fine. Uh, they wouldn't like we couldn't even go outside on our balconies. We couldn't do anything. We were confined to quarters. And there was a madame that she would give us what we thought were vitamins, which could have been drugs now that I look back at it. I had no idea, but I didn't notice any difference. I have no idea, honestly, what it was. It could have been anything at that point, but the madame was in there running everybody. So she was the primary one that was also running mind games on people. She would tell him basically what we would bake in a night. That was like a mind game, and they were like, you have to be competitive, and if you don't make this much, then you're going to get beat, or you're going to have this coming or that coming. When I saw it happen with other girls in the club. So like in the strip club. So I was like, oh well, if the fear was all around me, I'd seen it happen. Girls in the clubs even talk about it. So I was just absolutely terrified. There was just a lot of different things that they did. It's kind of fragmented in a way on the mind games, but it's he just knew how to play on my every insecurity, everything that he could. Hmm.
Now, when you use the word "we," were there other girls with you living in this place?
There was a madame. She was the main girl or the head girl, and she ran everybody within her range. So she had a couple bedrooms, and a couple girls would sleep together in each bed. And then there were the other girls that were getting brought in, and that's a big reason why I stayed for as long as I did. I felt like I could have gotten out sooner, but I was like, how far are they taking this? And for me, I was like, I've been in this, and where I'd started to be there for so long, they thought I was loyal, and they find a big thing is with loyalty, and it becomes a big competition once they get in your head. You feel like everything that's happening around you is completely normal. It's normalized, and it's not normal at all. You just don't realize it because you just go to work and back, and you're working 7 days a week. Sundays were the short days, so that was your day that you might have had a few more hours.
But not allowed to go do things.
Whoa, no, we only went to work and back, and if we went to the mall, the girl went with us, and nobody complained when you went to the mall because they were actually buying things to make you look good in order to make you more valuable to the next client or customer.
Now, these other girls that were there, obviously did they recognize pretty quickly they're in a trafficking situation?
Well, here's the thing. Here's the problem. Some of them actually like the lifestyle of it, believe it or not, because they like the purses and the clothes and all that. But if you're not in there for any of that and you don't care about it, it's a whole different story. And that's another part of the mind games and manipulation. They base your worth off of your material items. So there are different levels of trafficking, right? So there's
Right.
levels where it's like the lowest of the low, and you're in a you're tied up and you're in a room, and they don't feed you, and it's just a horrible situation. And there's actually other sides of human trafficking where they will have you in a nicer place in a nicer area where you have more access to go downstairs to restaurants and pick up more clientele down at those places, and they want you to look really nice, because if you look really nice, more than likely you can swindle a wealthy man into making more money. And they find that you make a lot more money by having someone that looks really, really good, that has really expensive things to lure them in and then get the money, right? So
Right.
they find it that you make a lot more money in that way.
And does anyone ever like does anyone go with you, or what would keep somebody from going out on one of these so-called date things and being like, "Hey, listen, you got to help me here. I'm in a traffic situation."
The reason why there would be guys, first of all, you have to remember they know where you live, they know where your parents are, they know where everything's at. And the second thing is there was always somebody that was a shadow. So you never knew who it was or who was with who, but you'd always feel like you were looking over your shoulder, right? So the madame would come a lot of the times and she would be in the same room. The guy obviously wouldn't know, but the
Right.
madame would be in the room so she could watch everything that was happening and just report or whatever. And regardless, they just knew where your family was or so that was just the main thing for me that terrified me to death.
Which I'm guessing that there is at least some discussion among the girls. Is this all pretty much the same story?
Yeah, yeah, for everyone. They all ran us the same exact way, but as I noticed that more girls were starting to come into the situation, I stayed and I didn't try to escape from it because I was like, well, I'm going to plant the seed in their head that they need to get out. I actually got 4 girls out before I decided that it was getting too dangerous because they were starting to come on to me, figuring out it was me. I was like, after so long, they're going to know that I'm the one doing it. But I successfully got 4 of them out at one
Well,
point, and that's when I called it quits when all of them were gone and I didn't see another one come in.
let's finish your story of where you're at, and then I tell you what, if you're so kind here, and again, this is so really important for us. I got a ton of questions for you, but I'm going to actually save that. So let's finish your story up, and then I've got a ton of different questions for you.
Okay. So after that had happened, so I know this is kind of dark. Even into my third day, I was. They took me up. They were like, "Hey, you're gonna meet up with these guys, right?" So we go up to the top of the MGM Grand. It's probably the nicest suite that they have in the entire place. And there's girls running around everywhere. And I got drugged that night. And unfortunately, I was raped that night. And it had happened to a couple of other girls as well. So it's kind of crazy that this is so organized that these people know what they're doing. But when I tell you there were so many girls in that room, there were many, and they just would, like, you would see them drop like flies. Apparently, I was one of the first ones. I can't recall anything that happened that night. I just know little flashes of what happened to me. And I remember after that night had happened, the next day they were like, "Oh, you did such a great job." They were like, "Here, go get a massage." And that was like their way of saying, get over it. It's time to, hop back on the horse and go make us some money. But primarily what they were doing is I was like, after that night happened, I was like, I can't do this. I broke down. I was a mess. And they were just like, oh, there's no way this girl's too weak and whatever. So they saw me more as a liability at that point. So they were like, well, we can at least make money off of her in the clubs. So they threw me into the strip club. They work me from morning to night. They would take all the money at the end of the night, and that's exactly what my life was like for at least a year straight after that. Every single day, unless it was a holiday, that was my life. It never stopped. It never ended. I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't do anything. I always had people watching me. I was told when I could eat, what I could eat, where I could go, who I could talk to. They would make me check in with my parents and act like everything was fine. But even if I were to yell on the phone to my mom or my dad, like, help, I need your help, or whatever, they wouldn't know where I was. They wouldn't know how to find me. They wouldn't even know what to do. And I felt like it was my fault. And he made me feel like that was my fault. And there was grave danger for them if they came looking for me. So that's basically what happened. And then after so long, I would cry and I would break down in the club all the time because it was the most ruthless place you could possibly work. Women were smashing bottles over people's heads. I was seeing people have sex everywhere. It was so degrading to be there. It was really scary. So I would cry all the time. And there was this guy that came in regularly. He was going through a divorce and he became one of my best friends. And he was like, look, something's not right with you. He was like, you need to tell me what's going on. And I told him, I was like, look, this is what's going on. And he's like, I know something's not right. What is it? And I told him, I said, I'm being human trafficked. And he's like, how do you know? The reason I broke down so badly that night is because there was a group called A21, and they handed out mandatory packets that said signs of you being a human trafficking victim. I didn't know what a human trafficking victim even was. I didn't know anything about it. I read that pamphlet and it asked you specific questions. If are you ran by somebody? Are they taking your money? Are they, do you feel like a prisoner? Do you feel like this? And I was like, oh my God, every single one has a check. I was like, and I told all the girls that were in there with me, we've got to get out of this. We don't understand what we're into. And I told the guy and I ran down the stairs, ran out the back door, and we never went back. And from that moment on, they still had the other girls. So I kept in contact with those girls. And a week came later, and the madame went out of town because she had what we would call a John that she went to go see. And they thought at that point the girls had been there for a while, so they were loyal. So they felt like that's the first time that girl ever left, those girls in that apartment. And I went back as soon as I could and grabbed them out of there, and we all left. And then that was the end, and that's basically where it all ended at. But
Wow.
that's all in a short story based off of everything I've seen. It's just that is just a little tiny portion of what has happened in the time I was there, and I would never wish this on anybody. You really never get over it. Time will heal a little bit, but it plays in a loop in your mind every single day. And I don't wish this on anybody, which is why I'm more than happy to be here and talk to you guys about it, because something has to be done. It's more than just trafficking, it's organized crime, it's money laundering, it's music business, it's same like the R. Kelly kind of stuff, the Epstein stuff. That stuff is very real, and I got to see it right in front of my eyes, and that's why I'm so passionate about fighting for it, because I feel like these were around the times that the Me Too movement was happening. I actually went through the Me Too movement before it got big, but I was going through that, which is one of those big things that caused it to blow up so much. But a big problem is a lot of women, after they go through it, they don't want to talk about it anymore. They just want to move on with their life because it's so painful. And unfortunately, their people don't get captured because they just want to start over. And my guy even is still out there, unfortunately, despite my attempts to go after him. He still just hasn't been caught, maybe under investigation, but he's not caught.
Well, yeah, I want to talk about that. I mean, again, thank you so much for sharing your story. It is so incredibly powerful, and now I want to ask you some questions. This is what I think is where we save somebody, right? So, when the research I've done and some of the stuff that we've talked about off camera, and I want to say this again, even though we've probably said it before in here. It was my decision. I wanted to protect your identity. And the reason I wanted to is because we want people like you to come forward, talk about this stuff, because it's a real deal. And, I have a daughter, producer Chad has a daughter. We all, and it does happen to boys. I don't want to cast that out, but we do see it more predominantly females. And this is something that's very real. So I want to actually talk, first of all, about the most common way that they find these girls. Social media would probably be that. Is that correct?
That is 100% correct. Social media is the number one tool that they use to get their victims. Absolutely, it's definitely social media. They're looking for small town girls in a lot of cases because they know they haven't really been exposed to a lot of different things. I would say I feel like because of where I'm from, I had a lot of less experience. I didn't have a lot of opportunity where I was from either. So it was like a dream big kind of thing. I'll never probably get out there and see it, but he made that dream look like a reality for me. And that's what they prey on. They prey on girls that are, oh, I'm an aspiring singer. I'm an aspiring actress. I want to work for a magazine. I want to do this. They may not have any type of background in that, but they'll tell you that they do. Just so y'all know background, like people can buy followers on Instagram. People can, they can buy likes on Instagram to make them look real, like they're the real deal. You can definitely do that. And unfortunately, it 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 causes people to believe that these people are legitimate and they're actually not. So that's one thing that you really have to take into consideration is a lot of these are these are phony people with a fake facade of a life online. So you have to be very careful with who you talk to.
And they can actually look legitimate because they do have money. They may drive the fancy car. They may have the nice office in a downtown area or in Vegas, wherever it may be. And I think you brought that out quite nicely. The moment they come out, start showering you with gifts and things like that. I'm blown away though. It was the same night that they threw this on you and said, "Here you go." Obviously, that's going to be a red sign, or a red flag that we want listeners to pick up on. But so we kind of went through the social media thing. Obviously, that's where they're going to find most of it. But tell me something else that you noticed right away that you would have said, "Oh, huge red flag."
If it sounds too good to be true, it is too good to be true. And if you're unsure and you want to move forward with a career, especially if you don't have any experience and you're just aspiring to do something, right? It's almost always too good to be true. Have your parent get involved. Have multiple people that are very close to you get involved. Tell as many people as you can about the situation and what's going on, because that's where I failed. I didn't hardly tell anybody what was going on, and then nobody knew what happened to me, and then I was gone.
Tell me what I really want to hammer home in this segment too is I want to know. I want our listeners, especially parents that have daughters or whatever, or the kids themselves. What I want you to really, really hammer on is the unbelievable fear and control. I mean, they need to know this is scary because there are some that are going to listen and be like, "No, I know this one's legit or whatever." But we're talking they drug you, they control every move you make, what you eat, everything that you just said. How real is that fear of being killed or them doing something to your family?
No, that was my biggest fear, and he knew how to play on my biggest fear. Once they get to know you and they find those weaknesses in you, they're going to know how to play everything that you have. If you have something that you're going to lose, just all kinds of things. They'll say they're going to murder your family. They'll say that they'll take this away from you or that away from you, or they'll go after your friends. It's a very real situation, and once you're there, you're scared to death. You are terrified and you don't want to tell anybody. You don't want to go anywhere. You don't want to do anything. You just want to comply, which is exactly what they want you to do. They want you to be so scared that you're not going to be bold enough to make any moves to go anywhere, to do anything.
How could you have again, even if they have a fake profile or whatever, obviously they're probably sending you pictures to make it look extremely legitimate. What's a way that you would suggest if somebody is an aspiring actress and they're in contact with somebody, how would you find out if they were legit or not?
That's a really good question. I would go through an agency or, networking around. If you're really, really, if you have a really big, strong feeling about what you're trying to do, ask around. And if they're a legitimate business, people around in the network are going to know if they're real or not. And if they're legitimate, they're going to be good. And you obviously don't want to go somewhere that's not good. So you need to really network around, talk to people, or, if you're going to a company and you're about to do something like, oh, well, can you send me a past client that I can speak to that can vouch for this and show me their work and show me some examples of what they have done and show me some examples of, where they've went and how you've got them to where they need to go and how you can get me to where I need to go. Because you can't just go into it blindly, because unfortunately that's what I did. I had too much faith in them, and I was a very sweet and kind girl, and I still am, but I just believed, and that was my biggest problem, is I was so naive that they played on that. They played on me being naive and wanting to be a grown up and wanting to make a big decision, and my excitement for wanting to do something big and my dream. And they just knew exactly what I wanted. They knew exactly how to pitch it and coerce me, basically. So yeah, they knew
And
exactly what they were doing. So
one of the things that I read in there is that the most common age is between 12 and 14 for females. Now, obviously, that's going to be probably a different type of trafficking versus the type of trafficking you do. Producer Chad and I have decided we're going to run a multiple series on this thing. But I would imagine that 18 to 22 is where they're trying to do the aspiring type of stuff. But this stuff actually happens to young kids, and you and I had talked about, which validated the research. It is a lot of foster kids, kids that run away, all these things where then these people bring them in and then completely turn them into these slaves, so to speak.
yeah, they're going for people that don't have any family too. But 1/4 of human trafficking victims are underage. In 2016, there was 300,000 that were victims, and 234,000 were adults. 79,000 of those were minors, which is 1/4, of what they're saying with the statistics. So it's really crazy. But that they can go through and just snatch kids off the street now. It's got to be
Yeah.
that bad. If you only knew how many Amber Alerts I have go off on my phone on a regular basis, it's insane. You have to keep your children close to you. It would be uncomfortable for me almost to let my children go to the mall. If you're looking for another place outside of social media, the mall is the number one place. Why? Teenage girls love going to the mall. They love going to the mall. And if you have a guy walking them around like, oh, you like that purse? I'll get you that purse. Hey, let's be friends. Hey, you know what? You should come over. Come see me. Oh, well, my mom said I can't. Oh, well, they'll sneak off and go try. And guess what? They disappear. That's
Yeah.
a thing too. So the
You,
mall, watch your children at the mall. Please watch them. Adults, children, it goes for everybody, but especially impressionable young women, especially that want to go shopping and have fun, for sure.
I talked to my daughter about that, and it's kind of this assumption that if they go with friends, they're safe. And it's like, no, I don't think so, because you got to leave them all at some point. You're going to split off at some point, unless you're getting picked up by your parents or whatever. I mean, it scares me to death because I know how real this is, and the numbers are there. But one of the things I want to ask you is, why in the hell do you think this is not more talked about? Why is this not on every news outlet in the world?
The reason it's not is because I think it's such a dark topic and it's so hard to talk about or so hard to believe that it's real. It's so hard to stomach that a lot of people feel extremely uncomfortable talking about it. It makes people very uncomfortable to talk about human trafficking. It makes people very, very uncomfortable. But not only that, there's a lot of really high end people that are involved in this. So where there's a lot of money, there's a lot of crime. And when you have a lot of very affluent people and they're trying to hide things that they're doing, which as you can see in the media now, finally, a little bit of it's starting to show, it's going to be swept under the rug. And it has been for a very long time. It's over $1 billion industry, right? So, that's where a lot of people are also getting their money from, which is insane. And another side note, which is absolutely insane to me too, is in the higher end of people, they will talk about God to girls, but in reality, they look at it as gold, oil, and drugs. And that was the breakdown of what they say God is. It's insane because I've heard that. That's one thing that stuck in my mind because I heard it over and over again, being around the very wealthy men that I went through this and had seen going through the situation. I heard that all the time because, oil and gas industry, drug industry, gold, it's all big business, right? And, a lot of the times they would take their clients out for business trips to go entertain them to try to close a deal. It all wraps around with each other. Like it all ties in. It all makes sense. And that's why it's swept under the rug because people don't want them to know their dirty laundry.
Well, not only that, but as you say, it goes to top. I'm going to ask you this question just directly. You see what's going on today, right? You've heard the whole Epstein thing and all these things going on today. There's probably not one shred of doubt that all that is true. Would that be an assessment you would make?
I have no doubt that all that is true. I've witnessed it, so I know for sure. Not with him, but I've seen it happen in a bunch of situations, I guess you would say. I've seen it happen over and over and over again. I mean, there was a time that I saw somebody, I think it was a senator that came in with a bunch of people. They were all in suits and everything, and they were trying it all. Means they were like, well, he's going to do it anyways and just to kind of all be around him. He wouldn't get in trouble, had a private room, everything, and then they left. So I know it's people with power that are doing these kinds of things. And that's really scary that they're getting away with it. So yeah, I think that's why it's getting swept under the rug too, is because there's a lot of really high people with a lot of power out there that are getting away with it and they want to.
So, Ashley, tell me how your life is now post trafficking.
I have to say that I am very grateful that my life did turn around. It took me years to get back to normal. Uh, Things still play in a loop in my head, but it took me years. I would say, man, probably like 4 or 5 years afterwards now. And my life has changed significantly. I put my head down and I got to work, and I told myself I wasn't going to fail. I assist and work in surgeries now, and I met the man of my dreams. He's my fiance, so I'm engaged. And yeah, so I think things have turned around, and now I'm using my pain as my power to go out and try to uplift other women and bring awareness to this topic. And your life can completely turn around after this. Your life is not over. It does take a lot of healing. It takes a lot of friends. It takes a lot of talks. but you get there, and you get a good support system behind you, and stick closely with God. And I really felt like that was the big thing that changed my life.
And do your parents know about this?
They do. I ended up telling them about them. They were absolutely mortified, and I told my brothers, and they were really pissed off. I don't know if I can say that, but
Yes, you can.
they were they were really, really upset. They were ready to come out and get him, but yeah, I told him to just let it go. But my entire family was really upset, but they were also very supportive. But it broke their heart, and it's one thing you really never want to put your family through. So by just making the right decision and doing the right work and not getting yourself in this situation, by doing what you should do, your family won't have to go through that. So that's why we're doing what we're doing today, on
Yes.
talking about this, because we don't want anybody to endure this pain, because it's not just you that gets the pain. It's your family, it's your friends, it's everyone around you that lost you for that bit. And you're going to be lost for a while until you recover. So I think finally I'm back to the Ashley that I used to be, and it took a long time, but I'm back.
That's fantastic. One other thing that I do want to talk here briefly about, in True Talks, we hit some pretty heavy topics, some pretty heavy stories, and you and I have talked off camera a little bit about this too, and it's really interesting how faith comes into play. I know God is big and central in your life, and can you tell us a little bit about how faith, either during the whole thing and then after, how faith played a role in your world?
Yeah, so for the longest, like even when I was going through the situation, I would pray to God, and I would be like, God, please help me. I know you're going to do something to help me, but at the same time, I was with grace. I asked him, I was like, what do you want me to know out of this? What do you want me to learn? And throughout, I still kept my head up. I still believed. And once I got out, I would say I was so in a dark place that somebody took me to my second date with my now fiance was to church, and it totally uplifted me, and it brought back those feelings that I'd missed for so long. It was kind of like my cup was empty and it got filled back up again. But yeah, so I don't know. And once I started going back, everything had just changed. And I realized that the enemy didn't do this to me. God put me through this so I had a higher purpose, so I could help someone else. And I specifically asked God to do that for me in my life. I asked Him to use me. And not saying He put me through this situation, but He knew how to use me in a way that I could impact other people. And I feel like He never puts you through anything you're not strong enough to get through. And I believe that I went through that for a reason, and He taught me to use that pain as my power. And that's where the faith comes in. And my life, like I said, is totally different now. And it's because I followed Him blindly, and with a joyful heart. Joy is happiness based off, not based off of your circumstance. And because I chose to be that way, it got me to where I'm at now. And there's no better place than I feel like where I'm at this time in my life. And I'm very happy, very grateful to be where I am. And
Yeah, I know. We got to be real, and we got to understand that a lot of people don't come out of it like you did. But I have I've seen different things about the engagement, about the fiance, and it makes me happy knowing your story. It just makes me so happy that you know what, you get a chance to do all this over again and make it perfect and make it right. And again, thank you a million times over for sharing your story. If we can help one, save one, that's what we're all about here at True Talk. So thank you so much again.
my pleasure.